Most of the time we experience space-time as linear. But space-time can't be linear, it has to be multidimensional. If under certain circumstances one could have the psychic ability to see into the future 16 years from now. Somehow, due to this event, I must have gotten lost in space-time on a level or timeline where that has occurred.
Sie sind ausgebildete Naturwissenschaftlerin.
Miss Neo, you are a qualified natural scientist, but as a 15-year-old teenager, you had an experience which had pretty wide consequences. After the consumption of Yimsenweed, thorn apples to be specific, you were heavily poisoned and therefore suffered from hallucinations and eventually had a deep transcendental experience. What exactly did happen back then?
It all started when a school friend of mine told me that he had read that it would be fun to do, and we decided to try it out. We were not aware how toxic this plant indeed was. No one told me this, and I just didn't know. It was kind of like a dare. We sat down at his apartment. It was during summer holidays, by the way. And in the evening, both of us swallowed a spoonful of it. At the same time, I already started to sense that this might not be a good idea. My gut feeling told me it was bad. Therefore, we hoped it wouldn't have any impact at all, but this was not the case. After 45 minutes, severe poisoning symptoms started to unfold with a racing heart, shortness of breath. I really thought I'm having a heart attack, even though I was young and strong back then. My skin was burning tremendously, and I wanted to cry for help. Which we did, and I saw that he was just in need as I was. He couldn't stand up. He tried to get up and to hold on a wall, but then fell over as the coordination wasn't working properly anymore. In this moment, I realized that we were in big trouble, and that it was a huge mistake and nobody could help us. The conditions became worse moment by moment. I wanted to cry for help once again, and when I looked in his direction, suddenly I saw that there was another person in the room. A man with gray hair and a long beard and a white toga. I looked at him and I got really scared. He opened his mouth and there was blood coming out all over his beard. The last clear thought which I was able to think was that this was the plant, that this is a hallucination, and I knew that I have to remain calm and just go through it, otherwise I will make it even worse.
As a 15-year-old, you came to this realization.
This was the last second, the last clear thought. I will not die, I will make it. In order to not see such things anymore, I simply decided to lay on the floor in the fetal position and to close my eyes. So I thought, it will cease again, I'm sure it will stop, stay calm, it will end. That was the last clear thought that I was able to think, because then it changed to a state as if hundreds of nightmares were falling onto me at once. Hundreds at once. I had no time to comprehend even. With a rapid beating heart, fear, physical pain. In retrospect, I guess multiple hours have passed while being in this state. It was 9:30 when we first took it, and I guess around 2 a.m. I came out of this nightmare, almost unconscious state. But the waking up was no ordinary waking up. Afterwards, I didn't know who I was. I wouldn't be able to tell my name. I didn't even remember taking any plant in the first place. Reality became a vision. A hallucination, so to speak, which was blended in.
Would you please describe this in a little more detail?
I woke up and sat down. Everything was pitch black. We had lit up some candles in the beginning, which must have burned out in the meantime. Then my friend went up to me and he was glowing due to a light source which wasn't in the room though. And he said that we could go outside into the forest because he wasn't able to get much air. And he said we would get some proper air. I couldn't even answer due to my weakness. I was just glad that he talked to me. So I made my way to the hallway somehow, put on my shoes, and followed him.
Was it real that he had talked to you?
That was not real, because when we walked to the stairwell, he started to act weirdly. He disappeared and suddenly appeared in front of me and then was behind me again. And I was not even able to comprehend with my brain that this was not real in the first place, so I told him to stop doing that since I felt it was impolite to do so. This means that in reality, I'm completely alone, with nothing but a vision or a hallucination on my way into the forest as a 15-year-old girl, completely disoriented. I followed him, a vision, so apparently both of us walked into the forest because he disappeared every now and then. There were very big, old trees, some of them are even listed, and I felt drawn to them. So I laid next to a tree, into a bush, and tried to sleep again, and had visions all over again. In this state, I have met friends who had talked to me shortly and disappeared again. Eventually, I was unconscious one more time, and once again I woke up. As soon as I woke up once again, multiple realities were being shown to me, multiple dimensions unfolded. On the one hand, I have seen those friends, and on the other hand, I have seen forest beings or nature spirits. I can't describe it in any other way. It looked like a girl or an androgynous. It didn't talk to me, but I saw it. Then an even higher realm opened up, which was incredibly beautiful. This was the highest level, and it contained 2 or 3 meter tall light beings. Some of them were glowing in white and others were glowing violet. They didn't talk to me directly. The communication was telepathically. As soon as this realm has opened up, it was as if I was able to look behind the scenes of life. All of a sudden, things made more sense, which usually are not understandable for human beings, and this knowledge was given to me. This knowledge has been taught to me. The main message was that I am always protected, that reality as we perceive it is just a part of a much bigger wholeness, that there is no need for fear ever in life because nothing can happen to me, that the whole universe is interconnected with itself, that every single thought matters that one sends out, and that everything is love, and I'm always protected. I don't need to be afraid. That was repeated a lot. During the time when that realm was open, there was this feeling of infinite love that was being emitted from this realm, which truly moved me. I wasn't able to answer since I was without any orientation, but I did feel very comforted, protected, and incredibly loved. It was really moving. This realm actually lasted the whole night until the sun rose in the morning. One could say it was like a training, this revelation of secrets. Those can't even be passed on through words. I have to translate them into words, since this realm communicates through knowledge, as if one gets gifted the knowledge itself. This is how I spent my time by those trees with all those 3 levels, and in the meantime, other people came along as well as those forest beings, but the biggest energy felt like the universe itself, as if the universe would reveal secrets to me. At one point, when the sun had risen, I saw that my grandmother was walking towards me through the forest. I was glad to see her. My grandmother was still alive during that time. She was truly a joyful, happy woman who dressed in white a lot. This is exactly how she was standing in front of me, glowing from the inside. And I thought, incredible, my grandma. And she told me, you have spent enough time here. You have to immediately go home now. I will bring you back home. I wouldn't be able to find the way back to my friend. So now again, a vision was guiding me, and it behaved in the same way. It disappeared every now and then, or was hiding behind the trees and then appeared again. I couldn't walk next to her. She was always in front of me. So this vision, this hallucination has brought me out of the depths of the wood and even further to the tram station. Then the first tram came along, and obviously there were people around me at this point, so I was not alone. And I noticed that I was able to hear their thoughts as if these people were actually speaking them out loud. For example, one worker was sitting there and was blaming himself terribly because of some issues with his ex-girlfriend. I knew though that this was wrong, it wasn't his fault. So I went up to him and I said, "Stop blaming yourself and feeling so guilty because this is wrong. It wasn't your fault." He was absolutely shocked and asked, "How can you know that? Why are you telling me this?" I replied, "Well, I just know, so please stop doing it. In order for you to remember, I'll give you this ring as a talisman. Please stop it. You're destroying your life with that self-blame." He was very astonished by the fact that I knew it. Sure, it was a little creepy because he might have thought that I am crazy. He probably took the ring only for me to leave him alone finally. So I went on, together with the vision of my grandmother, to the tram, and we drove to the Vienna subway where I had to transfer to another train. The distance was quite far from the forest all the way downtown. This is how she guided me home. In between times, I tried to orient myself for the first time by looking at the city map. But what I saw there wasn't even the town itself, but different colors of subway lines that don't even exist. That means my brain wasn't even able to orient at all the whole time. I bet if someone would have measured the brain waves, then it would show that it couldn't even recognize places. It wasn't possible for me at all. I had to trust my grandma's vision, which worked very well though. I followed her to the escalator and I started to notice where I was. I've seen the sun, it was a summer day, and for the first time I thought, oh, I kind of know where I live. There were only a few streets left. Since my grandma disappeared every now and then, I got lost in one of the alleys once, but eventually I made it home. Due to the fact that I was able to kind of slightly orient myself, I remembered for the first time what had actually happened. Oh yes, we consumed these seeds. Probably the effects are starting to vanish. If I come home now, my mom won't notice anything. So my thoughts continued, okay, I have some orientation now, maybe I just have to go and focus and go straight to my room and lay down. That was the plan. I finally found my home and rang the doorbell, and my mother opened the door, and from then on, everything went wrong. Within a second, my mother noticed that something's wrong with me. Apparently, I still had some leaves stuck in my hair. She asked, "Where are you coming from? For God's sake, what is going on?" And I replied, "Nothing, I'm fine, I feel fine." "But you look terrible, Mom. I can't look at you, please go away." I perceived my mother as a dead body. She looked horrific, and she had a big hole in the middle of her neck. Her veins were blue, and I knew she has cancer and she is dying. This was the image that was being shown to me. So I said to her, "Mom, you're dying." And she answered, "For God's sake, what are you talking about? Did someone give something to you? Where are you coming from?" I just said, no, it's Datura stramonium. Up until this day, I have no idea how I knew the Latin name for it. She grabbed me by my elbow and led me into the living room. She even went up to the mirror and looked at herself, since I was pointing on her neck, and said, "There's nothing there, for God's sake." In this moment, I saw this child from the forest, from one of those dimensions that opened up before me. She was now sitting in the apartment. So I looked at her and I thought, what are you doing there? She looked at me as well, but simply nodded her head, because she also saw what my mom had on her neck. So I said, "Mom, you're dying, and not going to the doctor, that's it." My mom was done with it at this point. It was too scary for her. In her despair, she decided to wake up my brother. I explained it to him as well, how it is and why he can't see it. I told them, "Mom, you're going to die because of cancer on your neck, along with the dog even." My brother said, "Please, come on, the dog is sitting right here, can't you see him?" And I replied, "No, you guys don't believe me." In my despair and due to my impairment, I thought I had to set an example. I thought I need to show them the naked truth. So out of protest, I started to undress until completely naked to prove that I was actually meaning it. I felt like I had to show them the naked truth. At this point, my mother and brother had enough, and she said that I had to go to the hospital. She called my father, who was at the office, and told him that he needed to come home immediately. I was led to my room, dressed up by my mom, and wrapped into a blanket. At one point, my father showed up and brought me to the hospital. When we arrived there, I told them that I have consumed Datura stramonium, in Latin. They attached me to a drip. Probably there were antipsychotics or antidotes involved. I'm not quite sure up until this day. Circulatory stabilization. I was aided in the hospital. We were there in the morning, and the next time I woke up, it was already dark outside. It was probably around 10 or 11 p.m. when I looked at the clock, which I was finally able to read again. And then I remembered everything. I was in shock. I was so embarrassed. I thought, this has gone completely wrong. They told me one is going to perceive colors differently, but this is how it actually turned out. In this moment, I was incredibly worried about my friend because I haven't seen him since. At the same time, I was very moved about all the secrets that have been revealed to me. That was very joyful and moving for me. It was really touching. I thought about it and I wished I could say thank you because it was so loving and endlessly and beautiful and so infinitely. One can't describe it in words how this light realm was. I felt that there was so much truth behind the things I was allowed to find out by looking behind the scenes of life. That touched me a lot. In the meantime, the rest of the room was already normal again. I had no hallucinations anymore. The only thing that was still unusual was that if I had rubbed my hands against each other, a light appeared, violet light. It was as if I could see the electromagnetic voltage that resulted out of this action, as if I perceived more than one would usually see. I had the feeling that it does exist normally too, but I am simply able to see it now. I kept focusing on it. I even played with it while being in that room. I thought, well, this is the only fun thing that has happened at all during this trip. My heart and circulation calmed down at this point, but the skin still burned. That was terrible. Then I fell asleep once again because I was so exhausted. When I woke up in the morning, everything was gone, even this condition with my hands. I was truly ashamed. I was lectured by the doctor quite harshly. Even the amount of 50 seeds could lead to death, apparently.
Well, nothing that one should try out.
Under no circumstances. It was painful and extremely exhausting, and it could have gone terribly wrong. When I came home, my mother was still in shock. Firstly, because she thought I might have turned insane forever, lost my mind. I could have had an accident, got lost, or I could have stopped breathing, for example, when I was alone in the forest. She was very shocked.
Is that also the medical perception, that it actually could have turned out even worse?
Yes, definitely. It was just a coincidence. Well, I can't tell what the reason was, but it could have ended much, much worse. Even with death or apnea, that was what I felt the whole time, that breathing was quite difficult. I guess it wasn't meant to be for me. I can't explain it in any other way. I tried to contact my friend then. I let someone visit him at his apartment. What has happened there was that he had tried to lock himself up and broke the key then. Afterwards, he tried to open the lock again by using different tools, but he wasn't able to do so. He only injured himself by doing so. The police, as well as the fire brigade, had to cut him out of this apartment eventually, and he ended up in the hospital as well. He even spent 2 days there. They had to have him sleep for 2 days, probably because he was affected by the poison much longer. This means, though, if we look back on how that night went, that I was rescued. Because if I would have stayed with him, both of us would have ended up locked up in the apartment, means the hallucination saved me by guiding me to the safest place at that moment, which was definitely the forest, and not the city with 2 million residents, where I could easily become a victim or could have had an accident and so on. Additionally, when the sun rose, I was picked up by my grandmother, who guided me through the whole city all the way to my home at the right time. Realizing this was very touching to me, and I needed years to finally process all of this. But as an atheist, one just pushes this away and thinks, well, that's weird. But 16 years later, everything revealed its true power and gained even more meaning.
Before we talk about this, I have a question about these 3 levels. Did you perceive the 3 layers always at the same time, or did the highest layer become kind of the most dominant one?
That's how it was. As soon as the highest level opened up, the other ones were in the background. The highest one was the only one I perceived for a long time. Only if it started to vanish again, right on time when this training ended, my grandma appeared and picked me up. Another thing that is interesting, it's whether my grandma was asleep at that moment when she picked me up. I can say now that this is true, because my mother called her and woke her up once I arrived home. Indeed, when she woke her up shortly before that, she disappeared as my vision. Even during the daytime, there were no visions of other people. Only during night, I was able to perceive all these friends and people who were known to me due to this level. During daytime, I only perceived the forest beings and other levels.
How did you perceive your grandmother? Exactly in the same way how you knew her from physical reality?
She was light. She was totally bright. She indeed was often dressed up in white clothes, but these were no ordinary white clothes. The light came out of her. She was radiating and beautiful. I have to admit, she was indeed in good shape back then, even though she was my grandma. But the way she was there was as a light being. My own grandma as a light being, glowing, loving. I was so happy to see her that she picked me up from this place. It was wonderful. She was gorgeous.
With that construction worker, there was no more contact afterwards?
No, it was just the way it was back then.
How did you feel from then on? Were you able to talk about your experiences right after with someone?
Yes, immediately after it happened, that I came to the realization that I had been saved by visions, by hallucinations, that they have intervened and protected me in this vulnerable state. I talked to my mother. She also asked why I had told her this. I just said, well, those were nightmares, forget about it. But isn't it great that Grandma brought me back home? I told it my grandmother as well. You saved me. And she said, well, strange, thank God it ended so well. I wanted to tell people about this higher realm, but was only able to tell my brother. I said, please sit down with me. They told me that reality as we know it shouldn't be taken seriously. We shouldn't be so afraid. Apparently, we have guardian angels around us the whole time, all the time. Apparently, there exist other realms and dimensions beyond our perception. Even though we can't see them, they do exist. But obviously, after everything that happened the way it did, no one was willing to believe me. Well, okay, that was just another dream or hallucination. Therefore, I dealt with it by myself, and I even went down the same forest trail later on and somehow expressed my gratitude, and I thought how insane that was. I wasn't harmed by this experience, and neither was my friend. I reached out to him and asked, did you see that as well? He told me that he couldn't remember anything, nothing at all. This made me realize even more that I can't even take it for granted that these realms opened up. I started to research more about this plant, and I noticed that some of those ancient cultures have actually used this plant for visions. But one shouldn't take it for granted if it unfolds those realms or different layers. As I said before, my friend, for instance, couldn't remember anything at all. He just slept through, experienced weakness, and that's it.
Did your experience back then, since you've mentioned that you were an atheist, change your worldview?
Definitely. Due to this experience of being protected and being guided, I wasn't able to deny that any longer, and therefore I developed some kind of secret spirituality. In my thoughts, I was able to connect to those realms since they told me that I could always do that. I tried to live by the things they've said, fearless, trusting. I wasn't able to put it into words, but I've carried it with me all along as a secret, simply because it wasn't really possible to talk about it with the people around me at that time. No one would have been able to comprehend it anyways, which I can empathize though. I can understand that. But I never forgot it. It means so much to me. Up until now. In fact, it became even more important over time.
What conclusions did you come to when you started to try to process everything?
Back then, I couldn't explain how hallucinations were able to guide one home and protect one. 16 years later, though, there was the second time where I needed to work things up, which was necessary after what had happened. 16 years later, when I was a grown-up woman already. No one has forgotten this experience. It was too impressive, kind of like a scandal in the family that the well-behaved one has done something like that. But as a matter of fact, 16 years later, my mother got this really rare cancer in the throat area. Therefore, she had a surgery done which required a tracheotomy. The time period between the diagnosis and her death were 3 months. Her death came very fast and very awful. At the same time, the dog died as well. He was 17 years old in the meantime.
These were the exact images that you've seen.
These were the exact images. It was literally like a picture, this corpse that she actually became, unfortunately. Our family knew it. My mother died with this knowledge that I have predicted this for her. No one of us could explain it. We were in grief, obviously, but this was a huge shock on top. Therefore, things were said like, you have actually predicted this. You've said it like this back then and even undressed completely so that everyone will believe you. And now it indeed came true, for God's sake. We were shocked by the circumstances. It didn't console me at all, I gotta say, unfortunately, because I also could have understood it in the following way too. If this turned out to be the truth, then everything else what has been told me must be true as well. But during this difficult time of grief, I wasn't able to realize this. But it helped my mother, on the other hand. She died without any fear at all and even told us everything will be fine. She kept repeating the things which have been said to me by the highest realm. No, children, don't be scared. Later on, she was only able to whisper due to the hole in her neck. It was all swollen, it was terrible, but she didn't hold any fear. She died in confidence.
Before that, you had told her much more about your experience.
Yes. We talked about it, and she noticed that this is exactly what I've predicted back then. It was every now and then a subject within our family, since it was a huge shock that I have consumed it. They have never forgotten it. And then it turned out to be true, so eventually she had to leave with this knowledge that I have foretold it. Later on, we understood that space-time, we talked about it, space-time is not linear. Most of the time, we experience space-time as linear. But space-time can't be linear, it has to be multidimensional. If under certain circumstances, one could have the psychic ability to see into the future 16 years from now. Somehow, due to this event, I must have gotten lost in space-time on a level or timeline where that has occurred. As I mentioned before, there are ancient cultures who used this substance to look into the future. It's just that we imagine it kind of like, well, okay, they just dream something and then interpret it afterwards. But I can definitely say no, it's an image. One can clearly see how and when something happens. It was open. Now, out of all of this, a problem has occurred. We started to think with my brother, does that mean that in the end, everything is predetermined? We don't want that, do we? We don't want everything to be set in stone. Or is it just the beginning and end that is predetermined? Or was she able to take another path after all? What if we would have taken it seriously back then? If science would be able to admit, well, okay, we're not quite sure about this topic, means if these things would already be integrated in general understanding, then we would have probably perceived this as a warning, wouldn't we? This is one of the reasons why I keep telling it to people, because I hope to be able to help someone by doing this. Then came another thought. My rational thinking tried to explain the scenario, and I thought, well, maybe it was simply a self-fulfilling prophecy. Maybe it was my fault that my mother has died in the first place, since I have told her this and she got so scared about that. Self-fulfilling prophecy. But what does that implicate? Even this term is being said so easily. But it would actually mean that my own words have the power to manifest, or a thought, or her assumption. Even this can't be simply denied, because that would mean that we have to constantly watch our thoughts. What am I assuming? Under which premises do I live? Because I'm manifesting it. That was concerning. My brother was smart enough to say, hold on, this can't be true either. Because you have seen the dog die as well. He left at the same time. It wasn't possible for the dog to literally understand the prediction and then to decide to leave at the same time too. No, that's impossible. This was not a self-fulfilling prophecy. Whereas it wouldn't be any easier to accept if one keeps thinking this thought even further. There must be another explanation. After these light beings have opened up this realm and this aspect turned out to be true, then one has to assume, if being reasonable, that everything else is true as well.
Could you tell us a little bit more about this other aspect that you have experienced?
The other aspect was that we are all connected. Even animals, human beings and plants are interconnected with each other. That animals, if they take a look at you, do know more about you than one might assume, or that they are able to look into you. That in reality everything is good, and in fact this was the hardest pill to swallow, that this reality is kind of an illusion. These were the information which were passed on to me, that I shouldn't take it too seriously.
An illusion, but for what purpose?
In order to learn. We are watched. Our intentions matter a lot, and every single thought counts. It's not like all of this stays without resonance. That's what they told me. They said that they can see me and that they are always there.
Afterwards, you became more interested in near-death experiences as well. What was the reason for that, and which parallels did you notice with your own experience?
There was no particular reason for this. It was more of a coincidence, and I'm very grateful for this coincidence. I was zapping channels and I saw this. Oh, this could be interesting, since one usually knows people see a light and go through a tunnel. Then I started to do some research on this topic, and I was absolutely astonished because I came to the conclusion that some of those people have actually encountered the same energies that I had met too, that they have been told the same secrets, that they also have been reminded that everything is love and light. And this is something that usually isn't talked about much. But this had really blown my mind, because I realized, hold on, this is a parallel reality which exists, which can be perceived by people if they are clinically dead, and it's not possible that all of us have the same dream at the same time. In my case, through hallucinations, which act like a bridge. Moreover, I realized that our consciousness has not been fully discovered and researched, that there exist totally different possibilities out there. Therefore, my wish is that science will look at this whole phenomena a little more closely in order to explain it, because there's so much out there that we don't know.
Science oftentimes argues that near-death experiences are simply the result of hallucinations. It was just a hallucination.
Yes.
You had experienced typical hallucinations, but even more than that as well. What is the difference, in your opinion?
One can feel it while being in this state. This was the only thing I could grasp. That this has importance. It is a secret, and it is pointing the way even. This had nothing to do with these visions that I had about these other beings or friends who were just appearing pointlessly. There is a huge difference. The force behind it was so much stronger than anything else which we experience here.
Much more real.
Much more real, stronger, unbelievably more powerful. It went through you. You can picture it like that. It radiated through the whole body. I can't compare it to anything else that is able to go through the body like that. Maybe warmth, but 100 times more. I can't describe it in any other way. It was very, very powerful. I experienced it as if multiple levels have unfolded and the hallucinations acted as a bridge towards those higher levels, those higher dimensions. Means as soon as consciousness is being directed into a certain direction, it is possible that those realms open up. If we look at ancient cultures, we can see that it is possible to reach these levels of consciousness through dance, through trance, meditation, and much more. And I think that hallucinations shouldn't be simply swept under the carpet. Well, that's just a hallucination, as if we would know what that is in and of itself, just because we are familiar with the word, but what actually stands behind this word isn't fully discussed yet. I've experienced this by myself. It is much more complex and can even act as a bridge. Even if I would have ignored all of it, I wouldn't be able to deny the circumstances. I was indeed guided, and I was shown the future. I was shown the future, which was the cherry on top in order for me to remember it, one could say.
After this very impactful experience of yours, are you still afraid of death?
No, I'm glad you're asking. Thanks to near-death experiences, I was able to notice some parallels, and then I simply lost this fear of death. Actually, I wasn't even aware that I had it in the first place, but apparently we all have it. This fear of extinction. But as soon as I was able to combine and integrate it, I realized that it is the same force behind all of it, and this is very essential because one doesn't even know how much of a relief it is to know that this is not how it actually ends. It makes a big difference, and I'm not afraid of death anymore, no.
Is this great experience of being cared for still available to you today?
Yes, it's available. The experience itself didn't even stop, one can say. In fact, it deepens more and more and integrates even further into my life and the lives of my family, because more and more pieces of the puzzle get connected. For instance, because increasingly more people reach out who have experienced similar things and were able to research even deeper due to internet access, even to look into ancient cultures. It is terrifying, but it truly becomes more topical and more important and even takes up a greater role in our lives. Especially because everything starts to unfold openly before us and we notice that all of it indeed has a deeper meaning.
Ms. Neo, thank you for your openness and that you've let us take part in your experience, your thoughts. Thank you very much for this interview.
I am thanking you as well.